Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast, The Engineer Whisperer. So happy to have you here today. It's so beautiful outside. Summer is just starting, and today I have an amazing guest. Jayshree, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Andrea. Very nice to be here.
Yeah, so I watched your TED Talk, got super excited, and I thought, let's connect, let's have you on the podcast, and here we are. So, as we start, give us a little bit intro about you.
Yeah, thanks for watching all 18 minutes of my my TEDx talk. It's a very interesting experience, I'll say. So my name is Jayshree Seth. I am currently at 3M. I'm a chief science advocate and also a corporate scientist here. And I originally am from India. I came to the US for graduate school, and then for the last 31 years, I have been at 3M, and I've been in different positions, technology and product development. And for graduate school, I went to upstate New York, Clarkson University, and I have a PhD in chemical engineering.
Well, welcome.
Thank
Well,
you.
today I wanted to ask you just a few questions, and let's start with, and sounds like you have lots of experience to pull from. Which was one of your most challenging transitions in life so far?
Yeah, that's a good question. Lots of transitions, but I wouldn't say in looking back that they seem, that challenging. And I just have to say, I grew up in a time and place that you just took things in stride and just sort of marched forward. And if I think about transitions, largely they were about change of place. So we went from India to England. My dad did his PhD there. England to India, which is the first transition I remember because I was too young when we did the first one. And then we left our home state and settled in a place where my dad thought, it would be really good for the kids, and they can get their engineering education. He's an engineer, PhD himself. And so we settled in northern India, and it was a university town, wonderful upbringing. And then when I didn't get admission there, it changed again. And I had this huge transition of going from way up in the north to way south of India to attend college. Then the next big transition was when I came to the US, went to graduate school, and then I came to Minnesota, for my job. But all of these were like change of places. It's only later that I realize that there is a place of change. So it's not just about the physical relocation, but a lot of transitions are just sort of mental shifts, mind shifts, shift of perspective, and driving change. And they can be even more challenging.
Yes.
And so the one that I really think challenged me the most, perhaps, was not a change of place, but a place of change, in that I always wanted to make the world a better place, help people, improve lives, and all that good stuff. And when I landed up in graduate school, I was doing modeling of crystal growth in space. And it just hit me, this is this kind of what I wanted to do? And that sense of goal incongruity was so tremendous that I had to change something. And so the place didn't change, but I completely changed my fields. And I switched to a field where I could relate to this feeling that what I'm doing is going to help someone. And so this was not a physical change, but a mental change. And I think that was the toughest transition, because you're going down a certain path. The path is laid out. Everybody kind of follows that path. You kind of don't change your subject in graduate school, because how are you going to sort of learn everything and redefine yourself and start from scratch and all of that? But the nice thing about having done that is it made it easier for any time there was a change like this, because I had done it before. So I would say that was the biggest change that perhaps challenged me, the biggest transition. Before that, they were just change of place, which can be interesting, but you just sort of work through it.
I see. Well, tell me more about this mindset shift because this podcast is about sharing exactly what you said, our human journey through transitions that we're going through and realizing that we are capable. We are more capable than we think that we are because of the things that we have done in the past. So once you, made the decision that I am going to, or I am actually in the process of changing my mindset, what did you do next? What was, as most people say, how did others see the change that you reflected outwards? Because what I'm hearing is the change happened inwards first, and then now you had to show up differently to others because you've been starting to making different choices. Tell us more
Yeah.
about that.
And that's an interesting thing you bring up. I think the one thing it did for me is I thought, I have to prove myself. I have to prove that I'm not giving up on a particular area. There's a reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. And when what I was doing really inspired me, it just lit a fire under me. And I was just spending all my time doing all these things, writing papers, collaborating with others. And really, what people learn in a long time, trying to learn all of it while making contributions, while researching the area more. So I think it really lit a fire under me because for the first time, I felt like I'm actually good at this. I know what I'm doing. It's not that, you know, I should mention that all while growing up, I thought I was not the science type. And it was primarily because of the way we teach and track and train and typify and even talk about STEM. It's so dry. At least that's what it was when I was growing up. And the whole thing about becoming an engineer was because we grew up on the campus of an engineering institution. So it was great. I could get an engineering education. My brother could become an engineer. Slight difference, education, engineer,
Yeah.
because the time and day and place that I grew up in, things were different.
Yes.
But I did well in school, don't get me wrong. I've always worked hard. I've liked working hard. I've liked seeing the result that I can do well, but it wasn't as inspired as it became once I made that decision that I'm going to switch. I'm going to work in this area and I'm going to prove to myself that I can do this and that I can actually excel at it. So I think, to your point, the mindset is really the passport to success. I mean, that's what it is. And I think there is a lot of the immigrant mindset sort of also in there. It's tightly interwoven into the stories. And I know that many articles, talk about the positive attributes of an immigrant mindset, which is, they're comfortable with discomfort, or fostering a passion for creating opportunities, or, doing things that seem tough, but just persisting and all of that. And I think if I look back at my journey, this mindset was definitely crucial in like overcoming obstacles. And I really want this mentality to be central to the way I approach other things. And it became that. There are aspects of this mindset that are really critical when there's a lot of change around us, rapid change, this resilience and framing of new endeavors, is really critical. So I really think that that resilience and navigating and pushing boundaries and driving change and understanding that setbacks are inevitable, they are an intrinsic part of the journey. In fact, I call it the grant mindset. And if you want, I can talk more about that.
Yes, before that, just have a curious question. When did you intentionally um want to say step into that immigrant mindset where you're like, okay, I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I call it this? Or was it first a feeling? I'm curious.
For me, the feeling was more of that goal incongruity. I've always thought this is what I want to do. I want to work on something that helps people, improves lives, make the world a better place. And it wasn't, Andrea, it wasn't that I wasn't working on such a thing in my master's. It is that nobody explained it to me. Nobody explained to me that what you're doing is very important, because when we go to Mars, let's say materials will have to be grown in space and you're modeling the growth of crystals in space. That is important. Like, that context is so missing in science. And some people like
Yes.
myself require that context, and it just wasn't available. And here's the thing, I wasn't smart enough to develop it for myself. And I should have done that. Maybe I could have done that. But what happened instead is I looked at this other opportunity and I thought, there, I can clearly see the codings that I will work on will go on tools. And because there is this excellent tribological coding on the tools are going to last longer. That is going to be better. And I could just create this context more easily. So I think for me, the goal congruity is what drove it. And when I looked back and I read more about the immigrant mindset, I realized that there is a grant in the immigrant mindset that I think is critical.
So tell us more. Tell us more about
All
that.
right. So I write a lot. And when people ask me certain questions about how could you do this? How did you do this? What did you feel about this? Did you think about this? I often thought, my gosh, they're discussing topics I didn't even like pay attention to.
Thank you. Yes, I feel the same
It
way.
just and your story, I know we talked about it a little bit. It's like that was like not even part of the things that I was worried about. So
Yeah.
I started thinking, what is it about what becomes important? What is this lens through which we were viewing things that made things so different? And how can you bottle that up so you can use it going forward whenever you feel like you're stepping into something new? So that was my motivation. So beyond generalizations and stereotypes and why many immigrants are able to successfully navigate, let's say, the entrepreneurial path or whatever, I think the grant of that mindset is basically 5 things. Number 1 is grit. Number 2 is resourcefulness. Number 3 is adaptability. Number 4 is navigation skills. And number 5 is transcendence. And for those of your listeners who are paying attention, it's GRANT, grant.
Yes.
Grit, resourcefulness, adaptability, navigation skills, and transcendence. So grit is this determination for resilience in the face of challenges. And it empowers you to persevere through adversity and maintain focus on long-term goals and refuse to be sort of deterred by failures and setbacks. So everything that you are experiencing, you put it into one bucket and say, well, I'm just going to have to persevere because I'm an immigrant. And you don't go into the fine issues of, oh, is it because I'm short? Or is it because of I'm a different color? Or because I'm a woman? Or if I have a different accent? All of that is bucketed in, well, I'm just an immigrant. So you don't think about some of those things. And it's just like, I'm just going to persevere, whatever it is, going to work through it. And that leads me to resourcefulness, which is creative problem solving, making the most of available resources, find innovative solutions in situations with limited means. It's all about adaptability and self-reliance because, you don't got nobody to come do
Yeah.
things for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the constraints that
It's the
make us,
constraints.
yes, and help us.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that leads me to adaptability. So you have to adjust to new environments, adjust to new circumstances, adjust to change in plans. And you just have to thrive in these unfamiliar situations because that's what you have to do. You have to be adaptable. There's no option. Then navigation skills. So this is very interesting because you don't understand some of the systems. You don't understand them culturally. You don't understand them socially. You don't understand them organizationally. So you figure it out. I see how it is. This is what works. So that comprehending of that intricate structure and then effectively learning how to work within it so you can progress towards your goals, I think is also important. And then finally, there is a transcendence to some of this immigrant mindset, which is you look beyond your own personal goals and embrace a sense of purpose for the greater good. And it motivates you to make meaningful impact and also contribute to the community. And it's almost like, I left home, I am here, I'm going to make the most of it, and people are gonna say, yes, people like this, they do good work, whatever it is. So I don't know if you agree, but I think that to me bottles it all up because I always think about the lens that I had versus the lens people sometimes have, and we are quite apart. And I'm just like, what is it? So to me, those are the things that allow you to sort of just muster through. And of course, in my case, I'm not escaping anything. I came from a democratic institute, or a country. My parents were reasonably well off. I also had the opportunity to grow up in this mainstream environment that gives you the confidence. I'm also coming in as an immigrant from a community that is known for their educational, qualifications and drive. So I had a lot of privilege, which I again think is part of that transcendence, that you try to go into the strengths that you bring,
Yes.
and that strengths then allows you to have the grit.
Yes. Well, as you were speaking, let me double click a little bit on the fourth one, the navigation. I was just talking to my husband yesterday, and we were watching a show where people had to use a map and navigate in this literally new country, foreign country that they've never been to, foreign language. So they were the so-called immigrants, and it. I made a comment to him like, oh, "Wow, these people on this show are amazingly awful at not being able to navigate." And I remember from my past, and this is where I really connect with what you're saying, is that wherever I was, when I was in Germany, when I was traveling in Europe by myself, when I was in the US, when I was in South Korea, wherever I was, navigation was something that came easy to me. I Even though I didn't understand the languages at the beginning, didn't understand the people, so literally couldn't read the signs. I understood that in order for me to enjoy where I am right now and to thrive, I had to, as you said, figure out this navigation part. But it's that
Yep.
mindset of,
Yep.
okay, it's maybe not the language, not the written words, but the faces, the humans, the feelings that I can use, and I can tap into my skills to put it all together and navigate me through. And
Yep.
and one of the things that I loved when I let myself navigate, including getting lost and then navigate out of those situations, is that I always found somebody that became a friend, a supporter, even if it was just for a short period of time. But they were there with me, for me, and supporting me through that period of my life. So
Yep. Yep.
thank you.
No, I think it's very important. And the reason why I came up with this grant of immigrant mindset is because I don't want it to get lost in the stereotype of the immigrant philosophy. What I want to say is, just like you said, there's a show, people are in a different country, and suddenly, you have to do all of these things. And so I think about so many of the roles that we're all doing, so many of the, let's say AI, or none of us are digital natives at our age. All of this is where you're just going to have to say, okay, here it is, and here I am, and we're going to have to do this. So what do I need? I need grit, so that I'm not going to say, oh my God, I can't do this at every minute. I'm going to have to show resourcefulness to figure out who the heck knows this stuff. Like you said, find them and see how they can help me, right? Adaptability. I'm going to have to change a few things to understand how to use this darn AI, or use this darn Siri, or whatever it is.
Yes.
And then I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to navigate through this, how I'm going to use it to help me get where I want to. And then once I've learned it, I'm going to say, look, I learned it. How can I help someone else? How can I practice that transcendence? And that, the reason why I collected all this, Andrea, is when I got the role of chief science advocate at 3M. That role doesn't exist anywhere, like in the world. Okay, I'm gonna be an immigrant in this.
So yeah, so you had to navigate through. What does
I'm
that
gonna have
mean?
to figure it out. So let's see what I need, and what am I gonna do about it, and all of that. And I had, all my doubts, but then I went to the map that is in my head. It's like, you're gonna figure out, you're gonna make it about transcendence, you're doing it for others, all of that, boom, boom, boom. So that's why I really like this concept of drawing the positive from it and using it, because we all are literally immigrants now, with all this technology coming out all the time. So if we can incorporate it into our mindset, we can cultivate a powerful approach to personal and professional development, empower ourselves so we can overcome these obstacles, seize the opportunity, and make a meaningful impact. And we're all gonna encounter moments when we need to enhance our resilience or embrace risk taking or cultivate great resourcefulness, and not only for our own benefit but also to support others. So
Yes.
it really transcends conventional leadership, and it propels us towards this more profound thinking and transformative leadership, and that's so important. So I really tell people, you don't have to be an immigrant to experience the immigrant mindset and embody its core elements. Given the rate of change, we all will feel like immigrants navigating new territory, so we can all adopt the grant of this mindset, and it's like the growth mindset.
Thank you. Yes, thanks for sharing. I caught something that I want to emphasize, um, that really is important, and I believe in it too, is how you went through the five, and then once we understand that almost like the previous four are going to lead us to step number five, then it's almost like we have this extra motivation, this really powerful motivation to do the four steps before, to go through them, because we are working towards that transcendency that you're talking about. Some people call it purpose, mission, vision, so forth. I call it this really powerful energy that you know why you're doing what you're doing, you know what you want, you know that you are at the right place right now to work towards what you want. It's such a driving force. So thank you
Certainly.
very much for sharing that.
No, certainly.
Well, as we're getting close to the end, I wanted to spend a few minutes to ask you, what transition are you going through right now, and would you like to share a little bit about it?
Well, that's that's a deep question. I think so I've been at 3M for 30 years. I've been chief science advocate for since 2018. And, a lot has happened in this time. And in the last 5 years, so much has changed with the pandemic and everything as a result of that. And I keep thinking that we are in this place now where we need to make a lot of change, where the world needs to sort of come together in a lot of these things that we have parsed out as separate. Diversity, 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 like it's some other thing, innovation over here, leadership over here. And I keep feeling that no, 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 no. They're so interconnected. They're so interconnected. How do we bring this together? And ever since I got this role of chief science advocate, I've seen the impact that diversity can have in STEM fields and all of that. And I can see now the backlash against diversity. So what I'm trying to do now is to elevate my voice, because I feel like after 30 years working in this, having this other experience of chief science advocate, my voice perhaps carries some weight, and the transcendence we talked about pushes me to do this. And I want to connect it all and say, okay, here's the thing. You can't talk about diversity without talking about innovation. You can't talk about innovation without talking about advocacy, and you can't talk about leadership without talking about all three. So diversity is integral to sustainable innovation, and the world needs sustainable innovation, and that requires inclusive leadership. So I'm constantly trying to get this message out and trying to shift my mindset again and again to see what aspect of it do I need to focus on to get that message out, that all four of these are so closely related. So, diversity is not about differences. It is a competitive differentiation. Innovation is not optional. It is the only option. Advocacy is not a passive act. It is about authentic passion, and leadership is not just a quality. It is an earned qualification. And so I'm just dialing it up with this message wherever I can go. And that is really a transition from, oh, little me working in the lab doing my experiment. Wow, where am I now? Where I'm trying to like influence the world. So it's, to be honest, Andrea, it's a big step, right? Because you have to see yourself in this role. And you go, am I the right person? Am I justified? Am I qualified? But then you go, well, why not me? Like, why not me to bring this message? Because I believe in this. And I believe in this because, I mean, I cannot imagine. I'm at the highest level a scientist can attain at 3M. I have 80 patents to my name. I'm the chief science advocate, but I started out as thinking I'm not the science type. So I have shown what is possible. I've seen what is possible. I want to show what we can do. And so the transition that is going on in my head is, how do I, as a person who was embedded in one system doing one thing, take a more holistic view and drive systemic change? Because, gosh, goodness gracious, these things are all connected. And now I realize what we do. We slice, dice tiny pieces, bits, put them in little boxes, label them, and boom, here we go.
Yeah.
And that's not how the world is going to work. So, how does an engineer become a whisperer? That's what I'm trying to figure out, is to bring this message into the world, take up
Yes.
more voice, take up more space, and say that in order to do systemic change, we have to address the myth and multiplicity of meritocracy, how we have come to believe what is merit, and how we have come to marginalize some, and how does that manifest itself, and really examine our systems and go, oh, that's what we got to change. How do we pay attention to intentionality and intersectionality? Because that is so important. We can't have all these check the box things. Oh my God, I myself have done the check the box things. And now you realize how much more intentionality you need in order to bring about systemic change.
Yes.
I worry about science and society and sentimentality. And what I mean by that is social sciences. We're in STEM fields, we're doing our little science, technology, engineering, and math. But do you realize that all of us are humans, and what is most important is social science? Why we do what we do, why we believe what we believe in, and how we're going to change that. And so I myself invested time and 3M put resources into understanding why many people do STEM but leave STEM or don't even finish their degrees. How can we address the leaky pipeline? And what we found, back to your point, purpose reflection helps, but nobody does purpose reflection in a STEM classroom. So we've just published our results in a
Yes.
Nature journal to say how important that is, because at the end of the day, we're human. And
Yes.
this whole idea that we have that, feelings, identities, needs, experiences have no place in business and science is baloney. Systemic change requires us to understand that we're all human and we act that way. And the
Yes.
last piece in my mind is the community and communality in the culture. We need to bring that. It has become too much about the individual and individual choices and all of these things which are taking us away from community and communality. And that
Yes.
is having a impact on our health, our mental health, our physical health. And so that's the kind of transition in my head where I'm going, I'm nervous about taking this bigger stage, but I'm also excited about the possibility of taking the bigger stage and bringing this message. And it is messy, but I want to say we've got to do it. We've got to do it for our health, for our planet, and for the next generation.
As you were speaking, I had this vision of you with thousands of crowd and speaking with them, and then kind of the whole following, leading and following. Um, I don't know what that means, but just wanted to bring it there, uh, because I can feel the grand, as to use the same word they used before, in what you're saying, and I can also feel that you understand that it's not going to be alone. So once you say yes to that calling, Jayshree, it's about that resourcefulness of who out there wants to unite and wants to do this as well. And I think that's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, I couldn't
Messy
agree.
and beautiful.
Yes, and I couldn't agree with you more because I have seen the power of one, believe it or not. So after 2020, I was like, what am I going to do about this George Floyd murder that happened right in our backyard in Minnesota, in Minneapolis? I'm not Black, I'm not white. What is my role in it? But I am a highly privileged, highly educated South Asian immigrant. That's how I view myself. What can I do? So I dug into my pockets of privilege and I wrote all my essays. And if people are interested, let's put the link in the
Mhm.
episode. But I wrote 2 books behind me. All proceeds go to a scholarship for underrepresented minority women in STEM. And this is when I realized that one person does something and others join in. Like you said, we have 4 scholars now whose journey is being supported by the sales proceeds. And why is that? Because I took one step and others joined in and bought the books. And that's how we were able to do that. It's amazing. So I am working on my 3rd book, and it has a lot of these frameworks, like we talked about Grant. I have all these acrostic frameworks, and this 3rd book will actually be more of a workbook style, so people can ask these reflective questions and work through these and work through transitions, and hopefully they lead to meaningful actions. So that's the whole trilogy. It's called The Heart of Science on Amazon, and they are published by Society of Women Engineers, who also administers the scholarship. So the first one is Engineering Footprints, Fingerprints, and Imprints. The second one is Engineering Fine Print, and the final one is going to be Engineering Blueprint. So here you go, Engineer Whisperer.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. And those who are listening, I'm going to put all the links in the notes so you can find them. Well, this was a great conversation. Thank you very much for being here and being an awesome guest. And allow me to give you back the mic so you close us out. What would you like to leave us with?
I think we all have a leader that resides within us. And sometimes it just takes time to recognize that. And a good way to recognize that is by embracing our feelings, our identities, our needs, and our experiences. And by the way, that spells fine. So it is the fine print that we all carry.
Well, on that note, thank you very much. Wish everyone to look into their fine print, get the book, figure it out, discover it, and grow and expand. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.